I've reviewed a few different mice here on the Kit Guru channel now, and this is one of the cheapest of the lot. Let's find out if that's a good or a bad thing, shall we? Hey guys, I'm Matt and welcome back to Kit Guru. Today I'm going to be giving you my thoughts on the MSI Clutch GM41 V2 lightweight gaming mouse. It's a budget-friendly, wired, lightweight, as I mentioned, gaming mouse from the hardware giants that are MSI. The RRP is £44.99 here in the UK, and that makes it cheaper than all of the mice that I've looked at and reviewed on the channel so far. So as I mentioned in the intro to the video, let's take a look at it in more detail and find out if it still manages to deliver a great experience while being quite budget orientated, to be fair. The GM41 V2 comes packaged in a pretty standard cardboard box. Inside the box, the mouse itself is presented nicely, albeit inside of a moulded piece of hard plastic. That's not so great for the environment, but on the flip side, it will protect the mouse quite well. Other than that small gripe about the plastic used, the packaging is pretty standard. It's nothing fancy and it does the job. The mouse has an all plastic construction with a matte black finish. Now the shape is quite flat and elongated, but it does feel really nice in the hand. The surface that coats the GM41 is rather slippery, which is pretty noticeable when playing shooters or doing anything that requires a bit of precision. There are some grippy sections on either side of the GM41, which do help with the stability overall, but I would have liked to have seen a bit of a grippier material used for the overall main body of the mouse. As for ergonomics, the GM41 has some nice contouring on the left and the right hand sides, which does feel nice and comfortable, but it's a completely symmetrical design overall, which in my opinion, it doesn't feel as good as something that's been crafted specifically for either a right or left-handed gamer. That's not to say it feels bad by any stretch of the imagination. If you like a mouse with an ambidextrous design, then this will be right up your street. The GM41 does glide quite nicely across my mouse mat thanks to the PTFE feet, which are included as stock. It feels nice when making sweeps and flicks, and that coupled with the mouse weighing just 65 grams makes for a really smooth experience. Looking at the bottom of the GM41, you'll find a very small DPI switch. The stock feet, as I mentioned, are made from PTFE and are quite large, helping to ensure that it's as smooth as it can be. The GM41 V2 does have RGB, which will be both a positive for some people and a negative for others, depending on where you stand on RGB. The MSI logo found on the rear end of the mouse is fully RGB backlit and can be customised in MSI Center. Overall, the quality of the RGB is quite good, and I quite like the look of the MSI logo. It kind of reminds me of Guild Wars 2. Now, the build quality on the GM41 V2 is about what you'd expect from a 45 quid mouse. It doesn't feel like the most premium of products, but that's because it isn't supposed to be. It's aimed at gamers wanting a decent mouse for a decent price, and with that in mind, I'm quite pleased with the build quality. As I mentioned earlier, the main body of the mouse is made entirely from plastic and it's very lightweight, but it does feel very solid. There aren't any cracks or creaks and there isn't any flexing when you squeeze the mouse. The left and right click buttons both feel very tactile and sturdy. They use Omron switches which are rated to last for up to 60 million clicks. The actual face of the buttons are separate pieces of plastic from the rest of the body, similar to the design choices used in much more expensive mice. The scroll wheel has a well-defined action and is covered with a very grippy rubber coating. It's one of the nicer feeling scroll wheels I've used, and thanks to that grippy rubber, I haven't missed the wheel when reaching for it to switch weapons when playing a shooter, for example. Now, the only downside I do have for the build quality are those side buttons or the back and forward buttons. They feel really cheap. They rattle, they're spongy, they just don't feel great at all. The non-removable cable is decent quality though. It's braided and a decent length at 2 meters. MSI call this a friction-free cable and it's supposed to minimise drag on the side of your desk. I've got to be honest though, I couldn't tell a difference between this and any of the other braided cables that I own, which feels like about 1 billion. Here's a sound test so you can hear what the buttons on the GM41 V2 sound like. The sensor inside the GM41 V2 lightweight is the Pixar PMW3389, which boasts specs like a tracking speed of 400 IPS, an acceleration rating of 50G, and a maximum DPI of 16,000. Now this sensor has everything you'll need to play any sort of game, including fast-paced twitch shooters like Valorant or Counter-Strike. The mouse has a pretty industry standard polling rate of 1000 Hz, which means your inputs will be registered quickly and the mouse should feel smooth and fluid. And from my personal experience with testing the GM41, I can back that up. I've played a variety of games during my time with this mouse and it's performed really well throughout. It's a fast mouse thanks to the specs I just mentioned, alongside being lightweight and those stock PTFE feet ensuring that it feels as smooth as possible when flicking across the mouse mat. I feel that shooters are where this mouse shines due to the weight or the lack of weight, and after a bit of time getting used to the new shape, I was soon up to my usual casual levels in Call of Duty and Battlefield. I also played some more chilled games like Football Manager and Civilization 6, where the performance of the mouse took more of a backseat and then the comfort factor was more prevalent. The mouse felt great after hours of that just one more turn gameplay. Now I mentioned the software briefly in the design section of the video, but now let's have a look at it in more detail. MSI Center handles all of the customization of the lighting and the sensor on the GM41. Now, if you've ever used MSI's Dragon Center, then the new, more simply named MSI Center is a better experience overall. The UI is much cleaner and it's easier to access features that you want. The software does try to do a lot though, and each feature is an additional download, like Mystic Light for controlling the RGB of the mouse, for example, which is a really nice feature of the software in my opinion. It's so much better than programs that just auto-install a lot of bloaty features that you're never going to use and you didn't even want in the first place. I've had the gaming gear and the Mystic Light features installed on my setup for MSI Center, which has allowed me to change everything I need to for this mouse. As I mentioned, Mystic Light allows you to change the RGB setting for the illuminated MSI logo. There are only a few options to choose from, which is understandable when there's just one RGB zone to customise. Selecting your desired effect and colour is really simple to do, and the effects can be linked easily to any other MSI RGB Mystic Light compatible devices that you've got inside or connected to your PC. Then there's the gaming gear section, which allows you to change everything related to the performance of the mouse. There are 3 software profiles that can be saved after you've set them up. A nice touch if you want to set up a gaming and a work profile, for example. There are just 2 tabs for customization. First off, the buttons tab is where you're going to go if you want to remap any of the 5 buttons that are found on the mouse. Then there's the sensor tab, which lets you turn angle snapping on or off, adjust the polling rate, change the lift-off distances, and then finally set up 5 different DPI levels which can be switched using the button found on the bottom of the mouse that I mentioned earlier. Now overall, I really like the improvements that MSI have made in switching from the old Dragon Center to the new MSI Center. The UI has been made much cleaner and in turn the software is much simpler to use. It can feel a tad bit clunky at times, but it's nothing major. I really like the modular approach to adding and removing features, and I hope to see this sort of setup adopted by other manufacturers that need it in the future. So in summary, I've been pretty pleased with the MSI Clutch GM41 V2 lightweight gaming mouse. It's quite a mouthful, especially considering the price is just 45 quid. It'll be a great first mouse for someone who's just picked up a gaming PC and wants to give something lightweight a bit of a go. The performance has been great and the sensor is smooth, fluid and fast. Everything you need to get gaming and to enjoy yourself. The build quality is mostly good all around and is only let down by the poor side buttons. I'd like to see the DPI switch moved somewhere other than the bottom of the mouse, as this is just a pain to get to when you're actually using it. But all in all, these are minor gripes in the grand scheme of things. This is a good mouse for the money. With a little bit more refinement, it could be a great mouse. That's the end of the video, guys. Thanks for watching. Please leave a like down below if you enjoyed it. Don't forget to subscribe to Kit Guru to keep up with the latest PC gaming news and reviews. There's links in the video description to our merch store, Patreon and our Discord server if you want to check any of that out. Anyway guys, I've been Matt. This has been the MSI GM41 V2. I'll speak to you in the next video. Look after yourselves. See you later.